Welcome everyone to this week's Cuppa Club. We're joined today with Pete Capener, Managing Director of Bath and West Community Energy. We are going to be talking about their latest bond offer, which is currently live on the Ethex platform. It's funding the construction of their new solar farm, Fairy Hill Solar Farm. Pete, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Ben, and thanks for making this opportunity possible to talk to you all. So, yeah, my name's Peter Capener. I'm founder, managing director, co-founder, managing director of Bath and West Community Energy. I've been involved in the energy sector for 40 odd years, and currently also interim chair at Community Energy England and co-chair of a ministerial advisory group on community energy.
Great. Thanks so much, Pete. I should probably introduce myself as well. So I am Ben Sharp, one of the senior investment managers at Ethex. A little bit of housekeeping as well before we get going with the Cuppa Club. Um, just need to let you know that this Cuppa Club is recorded and will be available to watch later, should you not make it to this live recording. Um, this is not a financial promotion, and if you do need financial advice, please talk to your independent financial advisor. Um, the layout of the session, so this will typically run for about 30 to 45 minutes. I will be asking Pete some questions. Pete will do his best to answer them, and you will, of course, have an opportunity to ask questions yourself via the chat function. So before we get going, a little bit about the offer. So, as I said, the offer is currently live on our platform. It is a bond offer offering a 5.5% return over 5 years, and Pete is currently trying to raise £750,000 for the solar farm. So without further ado, let's dig in. So Pete, could you first of all, I guess, maybe give us a bit of context on Bath and West and how you got set up and what you've done and what you're aiming to do.
Of course, yes. So, Bath and West Community Energy, we're a community benefit society, like many of the organisations on Ethex. We've been operating for 16 years. We were set up in 2010, initially as a voluntary organisation. Since for the first couple of years, working on a voluntary basis. Since then, we've built up a range of community renewables projects, 15 megawatts, nearly 50 megawatts of community solar, primarily one small hydro scheme, a mix of ground mount solar schemes and quite a large number of rooftop solar as well. But in the last few years, we've also launched a domestic retrofit energy efficiency program, and we've covered a number of innovation schemes over the last 5, 6 years or so, looking at domestic flexibility, local supply, and some of the learning from that has definitely fed into what we're planning at Fairy Hill. But from that early days of kind of voluntary organisation, we're now one of the more established community energy organisations in the UK. We've got a turnover of nearly 4 million. Well, we'll be 4 million this year, and we have over 30 staff. So established and hopefully in a position to do far more over the next 5 years.
Yeah, yeah, fingers crossed. Could you just you touched upon all the kind of areas you work in? Could you just give the investors a sense of the impact that you're making through all the products that you're delivering at the moment, Pete?
Like many community benefit societies, our goal is around delivering not just renewable energy or even demand reduction, but community benefit. And underpinning what we do is the delivery of community benefit in a number of different ways. So we have a community fund. We've distributed or at least donated £470,000 to date through that community fund. But we're also delivering other value as well. So our solar rooftop schemes are delivering significant energy bill savings for the host buildings, mainly schools in our case. And we're also looking to see how we can add value to domestic consumers. Again, one of the objectives of the Fairy Hill project as well. So energy bill savings, community funds, recycling value back into the community, but also establishing a community enterprise, offering jobs, all of that kind of recycling value back into the local economy.
Yeah.
Unlike the commercial renewable development model, we're retaining significant value locally. Around about 40% of the revenue that we generate stays within the local sub-region, which traditionally would just flow out largely to international companies. So we see the value in a number of different areas. And the final bit I'd say is that from surveys that we've done of our members and supporters, investors, we see significant increase in the amount of action and participation that people are carrying out in terms of the energy transition. So over 70% of people within our network are taking action as a result of their engagement with Bath and West, which we see as a really important factor. This is ultimately about people. Community energy is about people. It goes far beyond the megawatts and the energy. So the more people we can engage, the better.
Fantastic, Pete. That's wonderful to hear. It certainly sounds like you've made an impact in your local area and the community, and not just, as you said, not just in terms of megawatts and renewable energy generation, but in terms of engaging people. It's a fantastic way of engaging people in their local area.
Mm,
I was surprised to hear 40% went back into the local area, so that's a really impressive
yeah.
number, Pete. Thanks for that. Um, okay, great. Let's move on to the uh, nitty-gritty why people are here. Ferry Hill Solar Farm.
Mm.
Could you give us a flavour of Ferry Hill Solar Farm and just a bit of background on that?
Sure. Yeah. So Ferry Hills, project near Compton Dando in Bath and North East Somerset, so near Bath. It's a 2 megawatt, fraction over 2 megawatt ground mount solar scheme, 14 acres, 5.5 acres of solar, um, but with strong intention to build a project that is more than just the solar. Of course, the solar generates clean energy, and we love that, but it's also improving biodiversity. Like our other projects, we're looking to maximize biodiversity on the site. Within the planning application that we submitted, we committed to 20% improvement in biodiversity, so double what the minimum requirement of 10% was. But we believe we can do far more than that. And another project, similar project, just down the road, really, from Compton Dando, we built in 2016. We had an independent ecological survey carried out recently that um, uh, demonstrated between 55 and 60% increase in biodiversity over the 10 years since it's been built. So
Wow,
this is a
fantastic.
very real benefit that ground mount solar offers. Uh,
Mm.
so 2 megawatts, significant biodiversity, including a community orchard, increased permissive access, but also associated with that, a local supply initiative where we're looking to link up the flow of electrons, which inevitably goes locally, with how people actually pay for that. So obviously, we'll talk a bit more about that, but that's the headline summary.
Fantastic. That is brilliant, Pete. Again, the numbers, 50% increase on your previous site in biodiversity. That is fantastic. For those on the webinar who are not sure how biodiversity and solar ground mount link up,
Sure.
could you possibly give a little bit more detail on how that works?
Yeah. So the biodiversity improvement is assessed from a baseline, and that baseline's taken either retrospectively or, in the case of Fairy Hill, when it's built. And so you're comparing with kind of open fields, kind of probably grazing, and comparing that with what happens on the land over the 30-year period of the project life. And what you see is alongside the solar panels, growing of wildflower meadows, increased habitat, well, through the wildflower meadows, increased pollinators,
Mm.
which was
Yeah.
a big thing at Wilmington, the project I
Yeah.
mentioned earlier. But wildflower meadows and increased habitat, hedgerows, amphibian kind of invertebrates, a whole range of opportunities for increasing biodiversity. I'm no expert in that, but we're engaged with people that are. So
Oh, that sounds it sounds so good. And there's going to be a community orchard at Ferry Hill as
yes,
well. How
yeah.
does that work, Pete?
Well, we're just working out the practicalities of it. We know
Right, right.
it's going to be we're going to plant and manage it.
Yes.
How it's actually utilized is one of the things that we will be discussing with the community alongside the community fund and the local supply initiative.
Oh, very exciting. Yes, it's community everywhere. That's the key word here, isn't it? That's really good, Pete. Thank you. Um, Great. Okay, so Ferry Hill, as I understand it, is already under construction.
Yeah,
Could you give us, I guess, a more technical sense of where the project's at, how far you are from completion, and maybe you could also talk a little bit about that local energy plan that you have
sure.
for the site.
Yeah, so construction started before Christmas. We had still most of the frames pre-Christmas. After Christmas, we finished that off and started installing the panels, which is virtually complete now.
And they're
Moved on
bifacial panels, are they, Pete?
initial panels. Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
that
it.
helps to increase generation on
The
site.
yield, yes, yeah, that's it. Um, I think so. We're now in a position where we've just installed the DNO substation and connecting all up with inverters, expecting to commission the end of April, so the end of this month. So
Yeah,
close,
brilliant.
close to turning it on, which is very exciting.
Yes, it is. Wow. Great. And once it's energized, you plan to link this into this local energy concept.
Yeah.
Could you speak a little bit more on that? And again, this is all part of the community ethos that you have, delivering power, generating power locally and delivering it locally. It'd be great to hear a little bit more about that.
So we're working with an organisation called Energy Local, who've been real innovators in this space, who've created a model for implementing this local supply approach, um, that's been carried out in a number of places, a growing number of places around the country. And we're learning from others as we go in that sense. But the intention is to set up a local energy club, which has now been set up. The directors have been appointed, including local residents, and we will then trade via that local energy club with an energy supplier, in this case 100 Green, and we will sell electricity via 100 Green to the local residents via a process of virtual net metering, effectively. So we have a virtual meter at the boundary point of the community, and everything behind that virtual meter operates a bit like it would do on your home. We can sell directly to residents, and any generation that's not used locally gets exported via that virtual meter. And we then get a power purchase agreement, a fixed value for the electricity from 100 Green. For any electricity that's demanded that we're not supplying, of course, we're not going to be supplying everybody's electricity, then the 100 Green is then supplying that through that virtual meter and supplying households at a local level. And what the way it works is that we sell our electricity and the price has just been set at 14 pence per kilowatt hour. So a significant reduction
It is, yeah.
on what people would otherwise pay. Members of the Energy Club pay a £5 a month membership fee. that goes towards paying some of the distribution charges via that the energy supplier has to cover. And then the when households aren't matching their electricity demand with our generation, then they're purchasing the electricity from 100 Green, and they have a time of use tariff that is high at peak times and low at non-peak times. But we reckon in all of that around about 15% savings if you
Brilliant.
don't do anything, if you just use your electricity as currently kind of you do, then on average, and individuals will differ, it's around about 15% fuel bill reduction. But the real benefit here is that if you can shift demand away from the peak, evening peaks or the morning peaks,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
some people are more able to shift demand than others, of course, then you can increase the bill savings even further. You can make more advantage of that cheaper daytime rate when the solar is being generated. And people may have heard in the news the kind of the discussion about how can we break the link between fossil fuels and renewable energy.
Yes.
And we're seeing prices go through the roof at the moment as a result of the Iran conflict. As we saw when the Ukraine war kicked off, we see the huge volatility of fossil fuel generation in terms of pricing. This is one way of leveling that out, offering lower price electricity to households and linking what people pay more closely to the real cost of renewables rather than the highly volatile cost of fossil fuels.
That's a really important point, Pete. And the fact that they're able to buy this electricity at 14p, that is a very good deal. I think most people would bite your hand off if you could sell them electricity for 14p. So really good work that you're doing there. Um, Great. Okay. So in terms
So
of,
I just add,
go on, Pete. Yeah.
one of the things that needs to be factored in is that it's not 14p across the board. You have to take into account the electricity that you use when you're
Yeah.
not matching with
Yes.
solar.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
at peak times, that will be a bit more expensive. So there is a
That's
balance
right.
here. But yeah,
14p from your solar.
yes,
Overall, they're still subject to the cost and energy supply will give them when
yes,
they're not consuming from your solar farm.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's an important point. Thanks, Pete. Um, Great. So, and then just kind of the bigger picture here, community energy. What does community energy mean to you? And what's, again, you touched upon this kind of decoupling of fossil fuel and renewable energy prices. Why is it so important to have community energy thrive and develop and expand?
Yeah, really, really important question for me, I think. I think community energy, I'd start with by saying community energy asks a real fundamental question of the energy supply system. Who owns and who benefits from the energy supply that we see in this country? And currently, it's primarily multinational companies and investors in those multinational companies. And we think community energy has an alternative economic model to offer to this. And as we scale it, it will have an increasing impact in providing a local power for local people, which not only ensures that more benefits stay locally, but it also, as I say, increases support for renewable energy. If we can add real value to local people, then more likely to accept renewable energy in their communities. And whilst I'd never say that community energy absolves us from opposition at a community level because it won't. We're talking about putting infrastructure into people's communities or near to people's communities. So that's always going to be an issue. But community energy eases that process and reduces and increases the support. So community energy adds value to the energy supply system by increasing support for the infrastructure that we desperately need in order to shift along the path, the energy transition path. But as I was saying earlier, it also is about increasing participation more widely
Yes.
as people get more involved, create a greater link between where and when they use electricity with where it's coming from. Then we see a knock-on impact on how people use electricity and what they want to do in terms of reducing carbon emissions in their own home. It's a bit like when you have solar on your own roof. We see over and over again people that have their own solar panels take more interest in where and when the solar is being generated and shift
Yeah.
demand to maximize the cheaper
Yeah.
electricity. We need to replicate that effect, more, if you like, more widely within the community. So community energy is asking fundamental questions about who owns, who benefits. We think it should be local communities. It encourages support for the infrastructure that we desperately need for the energy transition. And it improves and builds participation more widely within the energy transition itself.
Pete, that is a wonderful answer. I'm sure that will resonate with a lot of people attending this webinar. Before I ask my final question, I just want to let the participants know that you are free to ask questions to Pete over the chat function
I see there is
on
one.
this. Yeah,
There's a question,
go on,
kind
yeah,
of
go on, Pete.
a multifaceted question.
Faceted, yes.
Um, so Are we planning on any wind projects? Yes, we are planning on wind projects. We have a couple of sites that we're in the early stages of developing. It obviously represents a whole different set of issues than solar, but we've got some good sites and we're keen to see those. We think wind energy is a vital part of the energy mix because it provides electricity on a different time profile than solar, obviously, and so you have a good mix of technologies. And I think we also feel that onshore wind is vitally important. We don't think that offshore wind is the sole solution. Um, so, are we active in Cotswolds Airbnb? Um, uh, I think we collectively need to be careful about citing technologies. I'm a firm believer that we need a lot more onshore solar and wind, obviously, given the work that we do. But I do think we need to think carefully about fitting technology within the landscape. We shouldn't be plastering it all over the place. And I think particular care is required in any area of outstanding natural beauty or any areas of specific landscape value. But that's not to say it's impossible. There are examples of both wind and solar in AOMBs, but they need to be cited carefully. I think we would never say never, but we would be a lot more conscious of landscape impacts in those sorts of areas.
Touching
Um,
on Ferry Hill, actually, and to that point, Pete, so you've been very sensitive in your decision to develop this site. It's grade 3B agricultural land, I
that's right.
believe, and
Yeah.
you've shifted the panels, I think, a bit further to the east to help with
Yes.
screening.
Yeah.
Um, for those who don't understand or haven't learned about agricultural classification, what is grade 3B land and why is that important?
It's a good question. So we look to avoid grades 1 and 2, which is best and most versatile agricultural land. That's where the majority of our agricultural produce is produced. Grade 3A and 3B, and then grade 4 are lower grade value land. And so we look to always utilize grade 3B where we can, and we would avoid grades 1 and 2. I think there is an important issue about land use that we have to be cognizant of. However, I think there is a danger of accentuating or amplifying this food v fuel debate
Mm.
and it can get a bit out of perspective, in my view, at least. So, for example, we know that if we were to implement all our solar targets through ground mount solar, um, let alone the rooftop stuff, but if it was all ground mount solar, we would still be using less land than is currently put down to golf courses. So it's kind of it's important to keep these things in perspective. We're not going to see solar being the cause of us not being able to feed
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah. We should be speaking about golf courses v food instead, Pete.
But yeah, there's a yes, there's a I can see that being quite a controversial kind of issue. Yes, but yeah,
Great. Uh, we've got another question.
yeah,
We've got a few more questions coming in here, actually. Um, let's start off with Eli or Ellie. Sorry, apologies for pronunciation. Just trying to understand if this acts as a fixed ISA and will hence be tax-free. Could you please talk more about how it works for investors? Do you want
sure.
me to take that, or do you want to take
Yeah,
that,
no,
Pete?
fire away, Ben. Yeah.
So to answer your question, Ali, so this is an if ISA eligible product. So and we have an innovative finance ISA offering on our platform. So any interest accrued from investing in the bond will be tax free.
And
Pete, do you want to add anything
well,
to that?
only more widely in terms of how it works for investors. So interest will be paid annually, and the interest on the bonds ranks higher than shareholder interest. It's fixed interest rather than discretionary. Um, and then at the end of the 5 year period, the capital will be repaid in one lump sum. There will be an opportunity to reinvest in a follow up bond. So you can roll your investment over into a following bond, but that's not a requirement. Obviously, if you want your money back, you can redeem the money at that point.
Yeah, yeah. Well put. Thanks, Pete. Bruce writes, I see you have a wide range of projects. Have you had any issues getting connected to the grid in order to move your generation?
Yes, we did. I um, kind of, without going into too much detail, this project has been kind of gone through several iterations from a grid point of view. We originally submitted a 2 megawatt grid application, well, 1.6 megawatt grid connection for the 2 megawatt DC plant. And initially that was turned down because it happened just at the point where the transmission network was placing a 1 megawatt hurdle on anything that was connected to the distribution network, the lower voltage network. Um, that forced us to reconsider the grid connection. We took a 1 megawatt, just under 1 megawatt uh, grid connection there to avoid that problem at a slightly higher voltage, but then took out a 650 kilowatt grid connection at the very low voltage, which wasn't caught by the transmission networks hurdle, which has cost us more money to do the project. But we managed to offset that with some additional capital grant. But it has meant that we're now able to deliver the local supply project because at the moment, local supply only works where the generation is connected at the same voltage level as the consumer. So to be domestic, it has to be connected at that very low voltage, which we are now able to do. We've had other problems on other projects that have delayed things. We're hoping that the actions that are being taken by the network system operator and Ofgem to kind of clear out the grid queue will help us over time. One of our wind projects initially had a grid connection date of 2036, which clearly is not great from a net zero point of view, given the goals to try and decarbonize our electricity system by 2030. That has now been moved forward to 2031, but still, it would be nicer to get it this decade. So it is a real problem that you're flagging up, and we hope more action will ease the process. Uh, did the green belt location cause any difficulties? It adds a higher hurdle from a planning perspective. So if you're developing in a green belt, then you need to demonstrate exceptional circumstances. Um, but Baines, Bath and North East Somerset, the planning authority, have published a supplementary planning guidance for renewables in Greenbelt, which highlights the view that they see community ownership as being part of what defines exceptional circumstances. So um, if it's community owned, generating significant value back into the community, then that goes some way to alleviating the green belt restrictions, but not all the way. You have to also be particularly careful about location and landscape impact. So all of those factors were taken into account in the planning application, and clearly the fact that we were awarded planning approval by a significant majority at planning committee means that we kind of satisfied their needs from that point of view.
Great, thank you so much, Pete. John writes that he notes capital is at risk. What do you see as the main risks that could affect return of capital?
Great, good, thank you. That's a good question. Um, I think um, because the bonds rank higher than shares in this sense, they have lower risk than shareholding, but have a lower return as a result. So the risks aren't on performance quite so acutely. But nevertheless, if the projects had an exceptionally bad year, and by that I mean you would have to see a kind of mechanical breakdown for a significant portion of the year, I think to start to impact on the bond. But the likelihood is for that is well, we certainly have never seen anything approaching that in our operation, and certainly don't plan for it. So there is a performance risk, but it's mitigated by the ranking, but also mitigated by the fact that we have operation maintenance contracts, we have insurance, our projects are insured, and we have kind of have strong oversight from an asset management point of view. I think I'd say probably the most significant risk is around capital repayment. So we structure our financial management such that we will have capital available at the end of the 5 years to redeem. But we are making an assumption about the proportion of household of investors that will roll over into another bond compared to the ones that will want redemption there and then, based on Ethex's experience of other bond offers. So if a higher proportion of bondholders want to redeem, we will still look to manage that through further fundraising. So we will be looking to engage with bondholders in the last year of the bond to find out what people's intentions are, so that it gives us significant enough time that if the capital that we put to one side is insufficient, that we will raise additional capital to make all those bondholders that want to be redeemed. And our experience again is that we have met all bond redemptions. This is the fifth bond that we've issued, and all bondholders have been redeemed 100% based on when they want their money back. So we're confident, but I would say that's probably the most the main risk.
Thank you, Pete.
Regarding the status of the return, does this allowance sit alongside or instead of a standard? Ben.
That is definitely a question for our operations team, John. So I will take that to them. We have your email from your sign up, so I will defer to our operations team on that one.
I'm pretty sure that it's part of your standard annual ISA allowance. So yeah, by all means, Ben, yeah, just double check that.
Thanks, Pete.
Um,
Um, Go on, you go, Pete. You go.
has the virtual metering set up via the creation of a local energy club for residential estate focused model been done successfully? Yes, yeah, it has. As I say, there are a number of projects around the country. If you go onto Energy Local's website and you can just Google Energy Local, you can see the range of different uh, energy clubs that are already in existence. We're hoping that regulatory change that is in the offing is currently being considered by Ofgem will make this approach more standardized, easier to do, will take some of the hurdles out and will enable to roll this sort of approach out more widely.
Thanks, Pete. We've got one more from John, another John. How do
Uh,
new bondholders? Oh, go on, Pete. Go on.
yeah, no, yeah, sorry. How do they rank compared to existing senior debt and bonds? So um, level with existing bonds and below senior debt. So the people who are protected the most are the senior debt. There's no senior debt in this project. It's all bonds and shares. However, we do have senior debt in other projects. That senior debt is ring fenced, so in separate subsidiary. So all our large projects are in separate subsidiaries. So in subsidiaries that have senior debt within them, it's done like that so that the senior debt provider can step in and take control of the asset if we default on the investment. However, this project is in a separate subsidiary because we also want to separate it from those that do have senior debt. So this project doesn't, so it just has bonds and shares. Um, but at an organizational wide, the ranking is senior debt, bonds, shares.
Great, thank you, Pete. Maybe let's use this as the last one from Annie. How has your bond offer approach, where people who may not live in the local community can invest, affected your relationship or reputation within the local
Uh,
community?
Another good question. Great. So, yes, we're particularly careful about shareholdings and membership because it's membership of the organization that leads to control. So, as an organization, we are democratically run. We are one member, one vote, regardless of the amount of shares you have in the community business. And members vote on the majority of the board and are engaged in major decision making. Bondholders aren't. Bondholders have no governance responsibilities. So it's much like debt from that point of view. So in that sense, it doesn't impact on our relationship locally. Shareholders shareholding does more, but even there, we look to ensure that we've got a majority of our members are local. The most important thing that we find about that local relationship is where does the benefit go? So, for example, for Fairy Hill, we're creating a ring-fenced community fund where their chunk of the community benefit fund will go just to the local community and will be distributed just in the local area, in an area to be defined, again, based on discussions with local people and on things that will be defined, kind of criteria that will be defined with the local community as well. So that's the kind of principal way that we retain the relationship with local people and the local community, ensuring that local people benefit and we are accountable, if you like, to local people as well.
Thanks very much, Pete. All right. One last word from you, I guess, Pete. What would you like to leave potential investors with
What you mean in terms of message?
to think about? Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. If
Well,
you
so
have one.
yes, I'd say if you have any questions, please get in touch. I appreciate there may be people out there that either have questions now or may think of questions afterwards. Please get in touch. info@bwce.coop. Um, Go onto our website, subscribe to our newsletter. Our website's www.bwce.coop. And there's loads of information on our website about all that we do. We try and be as transparent as possible. Our accounts are on there, our direct statement of directors' earnings. We try and be as transparent as possible. So if you have any questions from what we've talked about now or afterwards or from looking at our website, please get in touch. If you are interested in investing, please look at the Oxford document. And following on from the question earlier, please look at the risks and satisfy yourself that you feel comfortable to invest. But we do believe this is an exciting project that we feel will offer significant community benefit and a fair return to investors. So we'd love to welcome you as either a new investor or a returning investor. So please get in touch. And the future of energy is local.
Thank you so much, Pete. Wonderful words. Right, so just to finish on a bit of housekeeping as well, the bond offer is currently open on the Ethex platform until the 27th of May. So please do invest what you have the chance. We'll be sending you updates on progress, so do make sure you're signed up to get emails from us, and you can see how the offer is progressing, of course, on our website. Thank you to Pete for his time. It's been really interesting to hear about the project. I'm sure the investors on the webinar are very grateful as well. So all that's left is for me to say goodbye and for Pete to
Yeah.
say goodbye.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thanks, Ben. And thanks to everybody who's come along and listened and given us three-quarters of your time, three-quarters of an hour of your time. So thank you very much.
Thank you all, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you.
Bye.